harming themselves, doing something wrong, messing up, and therefore they don't even properly start their practice as it is. We are robbing ourselves of the potential and the ability and the freedom and the beauty of exploration and the beauty of failure. Since we are able to exchange so much information, we are also able to exchange a lot of like the warnings, taking these negative experiences as they are. Somebody's experience cannot be transferred to another person. We take them as stop signs. This didn't work for me, don't do it. This happened to me, don't do it, and be like, well, why are all the witchcraft books like for beginners only? All the stuff that is in the beginner books I already know. Where are the advanced practitioner books? Advanced or expert practitioner books don't exist because the experts and the advanced people work mostly out of UPG, and it's very hard to write books about your UPG. Then that's a memoir. Hi everybody, welcome to my cat-infested living room. My name is Mariana. I'm the creator of the Venelestis Botanical Oracle decks, and here are my cats who love to be with me in videos and just be a menace all around. So enjoy. I am currently very interested in UPG, not in terms of this is something that I found out now, but it is something that more and more during the length of my practice has become something that I think is overrated, especially in the past few years, decades, whatever. I have actually spoken about it in length in my previous video that you can maybe find somewhere here, and if not, you can find it basically on my channel. And today I am unprepared, as in I don't have any notes, and I have decided to just speak off the top of my head and perhaps speak more on like what I do and my project, not in terms of trying to sell you something, but in terms of like broader context of my artistry and my beliefs and how I work with these concepts in my own practice, and how I believe that this whole framework can be helpful to you, not only using like the decks that I have created, but basically any oracle or tarot deck, any set of colorful beads or whatever you find, and also like in your everyday life, in your relationship with spirits in the everyday, in your environments and stuff like that. Over the past years, I have noticed in myself as well the prevalence of assigning too much or a lot of importance on primary and secondary sources within witchcraft and magic, which I guess is fine, but it has shifted in our collective minds, I feel, into the feeling or the thought that you need prerequisite knowledge or prerequisite information, gathered wisdoms and gathered theory and theoretical knowledge before you actually jump into practice. Back in the day on Tumblr, we call that armchair magicians. Nowadays, it's not even about being an armchair magician. Nowadays, it feels that a lot of beginners in the magical practice are afraid to start for being afraid that they risk their spell backfiring or harming themselves, doing something wrong, messing up, and therefore they don't even properly start their practice as it is. And I think that's sad, to be honest. It is sad, and we are robbing ourselves, and I'm using a collective we, and I mean me, I probably mean you, I definitely mean a lot of the beginners that emerge nowadays, but also I mean the general socially cultural I don't mean anybody specifically, and I don't mean just you and me, the viewer watching. I speak like broadly, collectively. We are robbing ourselves of the potential and the ability and the freedom and the beauty of exploration and the beauty of failure. In my days when I was still like a beginner, or like in my early 20s, when I actually started to take my practice more seriously, failure was a part of what I did every day. And I believe that things that failed and things that didn't go as planned were firstly more interesting to me, more rich in experience, and were more affirming to the fact that magic as a concept is not just a concept, but is something that is real. The failures that happened to me were like some of the most like crazy, maybe a little bit dangerous, maybe a little bit like mind-blowing things that have happened. And those have happened because I was young and unevolved enough, perhaps, to not give a damn about, like, you know, what happened. You just like figure out, oh, this sounds like a good spell. You write something down based on, I don't know, books and correspondences, and just like mash stuff together and just do it and try it out. And then you forget to cleanse afterwards, or you forget protections, or you like mess up the circle, and you find out, you know. And then next time you don't do that mistake again, but you have already started a praxis, or like a practice in your life, and you like do what you have learned, and you learn from your mistakes. Nowadays it sometimes feels like we try to anticipate all the mistakes, and if we are feeling that we are not able to anticipate and mitigate and prevent all of these mistakes, then it's better like not to do anything. And it is what I hear like in, again, short form videos. It is what I read on Reddits and like in comment sections, and like it's the constant fear of backfiring spells and threefold laws and what happens and who's a devil worshiper, and like you know what I mean. It's, since we are able to exchange so much information, we are also able to exchange a lot of like the warnings and a lot of the negative experiences. But instead of like taking these negative experiences as they are, somebody's experience, and experience cannot be transferred to another person, we take them as stop signs. You know, instead of like taking the other person's mistake and saying, oh, maybe like this is what went wrong, if I do something similar, I will like look out for that, but you still like go and do stuff. We nowadays, it tends to feel in the online space like, this is dangerous, don't do it. You know, this didn't work for me, don't do it. This happened to me, don't do it, you know. And it brings into the practice something, it makes what we do or allow ourselves to do to be just the safe things. It feels like it makes us strive for a safe practice, a comfortable practice, a practice that is predictable, with predictable, safe results. But that is not how life, let alone a magical practice, can work in general, and the expectation is too high. And this expectation leads people to practice much less than they could if they wouldn't be so cautious. You know, the like worst case scenarios of every spell are much less usually than your ruminating mind will let you believe. It is never life shattering, well, not never, but it isn't life shattering consequences. It isn't something that you cannot get across. It is something, it's not something that will destroy your life as it is. It's usually, if in my experience, it's usually inconveniences. It's usually maybe fucked up relationships with people, but again, with a little bit of magical work and a little bit of being a good human being, a lot of these like fucked up or like wronged relationships can be repaired. A lot of relationships, I mean interhuman relationships that have maybe like formed and stayed along for longer than they normally would, because like there is some like energetic connections that have formed, that can be remedied. It's not something that would put you completely like destroy your life. Even if you lose a job, most of the time it is not like life shattering. You can find a new one. But even like loss of a job because of a poorly done spell, I can't really imagine that really happening. It's not impossible, I guess, but you would like have to like really, 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 really F up, I guess. Don't come after me, but it's my experience. I've had many like misfires and stuff going in a way that I didn't want it to go. I've had problems. I did like have relationships with people, not like romantic necessarily, but I did have relationships with people go awry because of like magic that has not gone as it should. But in general terms, it has like worked out. Like sooner or later you can repair the failures and damages that you have done, and it is much more of a learning experience to do that in your magical practice than to avoid these failures altogether and then strive to only have successes, because the successes don't teach you much at all. Successes in general in life don't teach you much about like life or new skills, new abilities. Successes are just that, they are successes, but you usually except from the reward of the success in itself, you don't actually take home that much after it. The failures, on the other hand, those are the real lessons in life. And by striving to have a safe, comfortable, failure-less practice, we do rob ourselves of the riches of knowledge and experience. In terms of UPG, which is what I wanted to talk about in the first place in this video, in terms of UPG, and I hope you've watched the previous video so that I don't have to do like the whole explanation again, but in terms of UPG is also something that you acquire through like unplanned, explorative, everyday magic, and also a lot of the times through failure and through stuff that doesn't go as it was planned, as it should have. Even through like communication with spirits, that's a UPG, but communications with spirits on like a normal relation type way cannot be done in a way that the internet nowadays would have deemed to be safe. There are precautions that you can take, like actually making sure that the spirit you are talking to is the spirit you want to be talking to. You can have wards and protections on yourself, have the ability to cleanse and banish in case something goes wrong. But being open to spirit communication, especially like in terms of demons and random spirits and the dead and stuff like that, it is opening yourself up to have experiences that you maybe wouldn't choose for yourself, if that makes sense. But those experiences are what some UPG, or like a lot of UPG, also consists of, and it's important to have them. It's important to have a variety of experience in your life, be it good or bad, and treasure that and learn from it. In terms of what I do, I illustrate botanical oracle decks, and I have specifically chosen not to include a guidebook with the decks that I have created. It is not because I didn't want to. I actually really considered it at one point to include some sort of guidance. But then when I talk about us being overly reliant on authority and feeling the need to come into a practice with prerequisite knowledge, I think that's counterproductive. And by giving you guidebooks or keywords and stuff like that, I would be robbing you of the ability to form your own UPG through a system that is a blank slate in a way. What I am trying to create as a divinatory system here is a system that is more or less a blank slate for you to form your own UPG, and then, if you wish, or before, if you had already, use or acquire more, not prerequisite this time, but after the fact knowledge, as in you work with maybe, like, I have the decks here. You work with food plants, you use tomato sauce, you make tomato sauce, you use onions in your cooking, and you already do have some sort of relationship with these plants, and your relationship and your feeling and your relationship and your feeling and your like energetic enmeshment with those plants is very subjective to you. If I gave you the onion in Fructifera and gave you the keyword that is like many layers or cleansing or I don't know, whatever, repellent, random keywords here, your experience with the onion probably would not be 100% in sync with whatever keyword I chose for that plant, because your experience is unique and it's personal to you. A few things could happen in that sense. You could either feel dissonant with the deck because your experience with the onion may be wonderful. Onion may taste sweet to you, and it may be like the best thing ever, the basis of every part of your cooking. So for you, it may be grounding. For you, it may be a cornerstone. That might be a keyword for you. You would either, again, feel dissonant with the deck, or you would feel that the deck does not speak to you, or of course some of the keywords might resonate with you on some level, but again, one keyword of any kind, even if it was like 100% resonant with you, strips the plant spirit that is as complex as we are to one word that is just a tiny little piece of its essence. And I just don't like that. I wouldn't be able to choose 1 or 10 keyword for every plant and be happy with it, that they are correct in a way, that they are all really part of the actual universally palpable essence of the plant, and also be confident that like a majority of people who come across these decks would resonate with that keyword. And I think that's an impossible task. And I decided I don't even want to try it, because by doing that, and even doing the best job I could, I am just limiting your ability to form your own UPG and to form your own relationships and to form your own opinion and knowledge of the plant based on what is relevant to your practice. I could have done these decks. Here is Medicatrix. Medicatrix is basically a deck that is full of traditionally and like modern medicine plants that are used to this day but have been used historically. There is some poisonous plants as well, because like there is this poetry I see between poison and medicine. And yes, that's like authorial intent in there a little bit, but it's still like a collection of plants that like revolve around medicine. And I could have written a book of some sort, giving you like the medicinal properties of these plants and giving you information, but that's information that is already out there. There is not much that is original and new that I could add to this deck that is actual provable either science or fact, or I could add my own UPG, but then that's my own UPG and I'm putting words in your mouth. You know what I mean? So I chose to just give you the plants and let you decide whether you then go and buy literature that is relevant to their scientific properties and you interpret those plants in those cards based on the knowledge on their scientific properties, which is a valid way to do it. It's a valid way to take a plant that is an expectorant, which means like it helps you get rid of for example, like phlegm, like coughing out stuff, and interpret it as something that is like helping you cleanse or banish things or get rid of things. You know, that's perfectly valid way to do it. It is also a perfectly valid way to do it, to see a plant that has a white flower and interpret this as something being pure or funeral, depending on your culture. Both approaches are completely fine and relevant, but they should be chosen for you personally based on the type of practice you have. Maybe you don't work with the plant medicinally, but you are a forager and cook with a lot of like found plants and use them in teas and use them in little pestos and whatever. So the medicinal properties of these plants may be completely irrelevant to you in your practice, but what would be relevant would maybe be the taste profile or the season when you find them, the places where you find them. Are they shady? Are they sunny? Are they dry? Are they wet? Do they taste more savory? Are they more tangy? Are they more herbal? Do they go well with salads, so being like coldly prepared, or are they better like prepared like warmly? And those are also ways to work with these plants. And then lastly, it is also absolutely like relevant to just take the name of the plant. This is just a random one that I pulled, and it's the Magnolia. And maybe I have never heard of a Magnolia before, never seen one. I see a big white flower, and I see that is Grandiflora is the name of the specific species. And I see Grandiflora, and maybe in my language it would mean grand and flower, which in my specific language it doesn't, but in English I'm pretty sure that anybody could extrapolate the words grand and flower, like large flower, from these. But in a like state of mind, you could also not see it as grand flower, but maybe like in your mind at the top of your head, it's now floor. It's not grand flower, but it's like something about a grand floor. So maybe it could be about a wedding, you know, because like it's a white flower, there's some grand stuff going on the floor, and it could be about a wedding. And that's also a completely like fine way to read with these cards. And maybe later, like a year later, a month later, you see a magnolia tree and you like smell it. Maybe you look it up, so you know you find something out about it, that it's pollinated by bugs because it's ancient. And next time you pull it, you will have more information about the card, but also the association with the wedding will also stay in your mind. So you will be able to like work with more subconscious information that will be pulled out into your consciousness through the energetic exchange that is happening at the table in the moment where you're doing it. This same way can be applied when you are on a walk outside and you just see a plant that you have never seen before, and you can just sit with it and let its energy like be enmeshed with yours and see if there is any thoughts, feelings, emotions, sensations in your body that are happening. Is your body reacting to it somehow? It is important in those cases and in these moments to not be in the state of rumination, in the state of analysis, in the state of thinking about, is this right, is this wrong, am I making this up? Because then you are not connected, you are not listening to the spirit, you are in your head. And if you're in your head, then of course you're making it up, or you're not in the present moment. You are either in your past when you have experienced something else, or you are in this non-existent place called future when you're thinking about what could be, what, you know, you're not in the present moment, you're not reading the room as it is, because your mind doesn't live in the moment. Your mind lives in the past or in the future. So if you're thinking about stuff, ruminating, and then you're probably in your mind, then you're in the past and the future, and then you're not in the moment, and therefore whatever happens like in your thought processes cannot be a communication with the spirit that's happening in real time. I have talked about that in a previous video as well, about the ability to distinguish what is your mind and what is maybe a communication with a like outside entity, energy, a spirit that is not you, that is somebody that you are in a dialogue with. Acquiring UPGs works in a similar way. UPG, as in Unverified Personal Gnosis, to just repeat it in case you have listened to the video now 27 minutes ago and forgot, works the same way. And it's important to be able to distinguish between what is a figment of your imagination and a figment of your mind, and what is an actual experience that's stemming from outside, or a realization that has not been just made up or created in your mind to satisfy some sort of wanting. To bridge this gap between having a system that is completely free range and completely without guidance, I have decided to create the Venelestis Naturalis Lenormand. And the Lenormand is, I think, forgive me, but I think the best of both worlds. I have taken a lot of liberties with the illustrations and the things that are depicted, and it's not a standard Lenormand in terms of what is drawn on the cards. It does feature the standard titles and numbers of the decks, but what is depicted is completely naturalized, and it's usually plants or animals or insects. For example, I've again random card number 33, the key, but it's a type of a primula flower that is like shaped like a key. But again, in my culture, because there is still some authorial intent in this, in my culture, they are like primulas are called Peter's keys because they unlock the spring, you know. So there is like this double metaphor. But when you read this Lenormand, you are either free to use the standard meanings of the cards, as in the key, which is like unlocking something, or it is some sort of a revelation, unlocking doors and opportunities and stuff like that. But you are also free to use the Primrose as a part of the interpretation, and maybe that is new beginnings. It is very like spring coated, at least in Europe. This one also looks a little bit like a cyclamen instead of a actual primula. So maybe it is something changing from something to another, because this specific one has been moved from the cyclamen genus into primula. Or maybe it can be like changing of the season, changing of the tide, unlocking new pathways. You know what I mean? And it gives you more freedom to experiment, and gives you something to fall back on in case you are like blanking out. Random card, I pulled mice. Mice is the same as it is in the standard red Lenormand, so there is nothing new. Now I pulled the Coffin. I'm actually very proud of the Coffin. I don't know if you can see it properly. I don't know if it... The Coffin, or for the Coffin, I chose, it's again standard. There is written like the title of the card, there is the number, but instead of an actual coffin, I chose to depict a sacred Scarabeus beetle. And that is, again, for its association with like ancient tombs of the pharaohs, but also about like its tendency to roll little balls of dung and roll them around, as Coffin and death is a transformative cyclical thing that happens, and it's like rolls around. We are born, we die, we're born, we die, and it's a cycle. Death in general and endings are a cycle. So there is like these two like thought processes that you may have that are like coming, that I have thought about, but you of course may think about like 1,000 other different things that can be relevant not only to the Coffin itself if you're reading it as a Lenormand, but also in terms of like the Scarab Beetle if you choose to like read it as more of a botanical oracle deck in terms of what I've created. So there is a lot of freedom giving you something to fall back on in the form of the actual Lenormand system, but then it like shows you different other ways to interpret that same card that are more like free form and more freeing. You could, based on what you know about the Scarab or based on what the image looks like to you, you can like go different paths based on the context of your reading, of your question and stuff like that. And I think it's a great way for somebody who like feels the need to like stay safe and have some sort of guidance, but also feels the need for advancement, let's say, the need for advancement of your own craft and of your own ability to divine without actually having to stay within the reliance on outside authority, if that makes sense. So this is something that I have created as like a bridge gap bridger, I guess. Between the completely freeform, no guidance, no keywords decks that I have, and those people who feel that that's maybe a little bit too daunting. But the intention behind like everything that I have created is to show you that you do have the innate ability to work with and acquire your own UPG that is actionable, workable, and above all, extremely valuable to your practice. And building a wealth of UPGs is the way to become advanced. Often also I have like seen people be like, well, why are all the witchcraft books like for beginners only? I like all the stuff that is in the beginner books I already know. Where are the advanced practitioner books? And the fact is, the advanced practitioner books are not there because the advanced practitioners work mostly out of UPG. And because they work mostly out of UPG, it's very hard to write a book about your own UPG because your own UPG is personal. It's unverified. It can be verified, of course, if you find your own UPG in, for example, like other sources, or if a lot of people agree that sort of gnosis is something that they have also experienced and that is something that is replicable. But generally, advanced or expert practitioner books don't exist because the experts and the advanced people work mostly out of UPG, and it's very hard to write books about your UPG. Then that's a memoir. That's not a guidebook, you know. So, in order to advance your beginner or advanced practice, you do have to work with or through your own experience and create something new for yourself. So what I'm creating here through these decks is a guidepost for you. It's a like show don't tell way of advancing somebody from beginner to advanced practitioner. To like work with these decks, you don't have to be advanced in anything. You can be somebody who just wants to work with plants with zero knowledge whatsoever, and you can work with this only on an intuitive level, only based on like vibes only. That's completely fine. But I would also encourage you to work with this not only as vibes only forever, but maybe within some sort of praxis, be it like acquiring more knowledge through research about those plants, or maybe using these cards within like your spells or your craft somehow, or trying to like verify the gnosis that you have gleaned in the cards through some sort of other method, be it of course literature, but also be it through like going out and putting the card, your knowledge, and the actual plant, if you're able, next to each other and comparing what your impressions are, what the impressions of the actual plant are, and what the chemistry between you and the spirit actually is in the real world. I believe that most of the plants that I have drawn, most people in the world have access to either to the specific species that is in the cards, or to a relative species that is native to your own area. For example, if I drew the Salvia officinalis, which is the garden sage, maybe garden sage doesn't grow specifically where you are, but there is a very big chance that wherever you are in the world, there is some sort of salvia that is native to your own country. And it's completely fine to take your own native species of the salvia or whichever plant you like want to work with from the decks, and work with its relative within the species, because they are in some way similar to each other. And even if you made introductions through one species and then meet another, the energies tend not to be too dissimilar. And if they are, that is also something to like take notice of for your practice, that hey, this officinalis, whichever plant, and this hirta, that is like the same species but like a different, no, same family but different species, they have like diametrically opposite energies, and that is very interesting. And you can then explore why that is. Maybe the species number one is from a more mild climate, whereas the other species thrives in the desert, and that's why their energies is so different. But there is usually a correlation between the two relative plants. There is something that is similar to them, not only in terms of how they look, but also in terms of how they feel, what their energies are, and of course their effect on the human body as well. Yeah, that was a little bit incoherent video, but I think I'm all talked out and my throat is starting to get sore because I have been talking for 40 minutes now. I will probably cut this down a lot, but I hope this like gave you at least some ideas about why and how to start building your UPG, and about the fact that you don't need to be always 100% safe in your practice before you start practicing. Mistakes are where we make the biggest strides forward and the biggest sources of experience, knowledge, and stuff like that. So thank you for listening so far in this long video. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.